What stranger will you never forget? When I was broke and 18 years old, trying to make ends meet, I had a side hustle providing IT support for households, like a Geek Squad sort of thing. In practice, I would mostly set up computers for elderly people and the tech illiterate and teach them how to use them or get them out of their technical binds, usually with printers, by Googling on their behalf. This elderly Korean gentleman hired me to set up his new computer for him. I spent an hour setting it up and teaching him how to use it, and 2 more hours eating a wonderful lunch with the man and his wife. He wouldn't accept my invoice for just the first hour. Instead, he paid me 3 times my hourly rate for all 3 hours and asked me to come back to train him the next week. Over the course of about a month, I came back 4 times, worked with him, had a lovely meal, and he would tell me about his family and his kids. He was so proud of his daughter, who was about to finish a residency and become a pediatrician. By the end of the month, he was pretty comfortable on the PC, and I thanked him profusely for how kind he was and how ridiculously he overpaid me. He told me I reminded him of his son, who was estranged for some reason. I didn't press, and that he had hoped somewhere out there somebody was being kind to his son and sharing a home-cooked meal with him. I don't know why, but more than 10 years later, I can't think of the guy without tearing up. I hope everything turned out well for him. What the heck, man? You made me tear up. I was driving down south with my girlfriend. We had a blowout, so I put on the donut. The donut blows out while we're exiting the very next exit. So there we are, maybe 19 and at least 100 miles from anyone we know at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking about what to do next, and probably looked like there was something wrong, so this older man offered to help. He drives me 20 or so minutes to a junkyard to get a cheap tire. Then he puts the tires on the rim with no more than a pry bar and some soapy water. Had a compressor on his truck, so we aired it up and put it on, and we went our way. The fact that he dismounted and mounted a tire with just a crowbar is impressive. Mounting a tire on a wheel by hand is not easy. Took a train to NYC by myself for the first time. I was 18. Second time to NYC. First time ever on a train. I told the kiosk lady that I've never been on a train before and asked if she might give me a quick rundown of what to do. Another train station employee was nearby and was so interested and amused that I was taking a train for the first time and was alone. He walked me through what to do, down to the smallest detail. No judgment, no meanness. He was just a guy with a silly disposition, delighting in a young person's naivety breaking up the doldrums of his week. I aspire to be that way when people ask me for help. Thanks, Frank P. You were a peach. New Yorkers seem pretty great. When I was super overweight, I was just starting to work out somewhat regularly. Being morbidly obese at the gym is terrible. I have never felt more eyes on me before in my life. I was on a treadmill, grinding out some inclined walk light jogging, and a super fit girl got on the machine next to me. This was all pre-COVID. She did a short warm-up, and before she got off the treadmill, she turned to me and gave me a high five and told me to keep it up. It was so encouraging to have that support when I was used to getting stared at by everyone else in the gym. Her small kind gesture went a long way. I was wasted on my front porch one night, me and a couple friends. I lived in a rough neighborhood at the time. Lot of homeless people, but most of them were decent people just down on their luck. Anyway, I see a homeless guy walking by my house, and I holler out to him, "Yo man, you want a drink?" And he's like, "Man, hell yeah, thank you." So he comes up into the yard. I give him a drink and an extra one for the road. He starts going on about how he misses his son and how he never gets to see him anymore. We all sit and listen to him. He starts crying and says he bought his kid a brand new bag of Hanes socks and his mom wouldn't let him have them. Now I don't know what he did to deserve such treatment. Maybe he's a total son of a bitch and deserves to be where he is. Maybe not. I have no idea. But what I do know is, whatever his past, he was having a very human moment at that time. And he was super thankful, not just for the drink, but that me and my friends were listening and talking with him, just letting him vent. Then he tries to give me the pack of socks he bought for his kid, which I vehemently refused. I was like, "Man, you keep them. Your feet might get cold out there." But he wasn't hearing it. I mean, he refused to keep them. He flat out insisted that I take them. Eventually, it became obvious he wasn't going to take no for an answer, and he wore me down and I accepted them. I guess he didn't need the reminder. He moved on, and the party vibe was completely gone. We all just went inside and crashed. What did you do with those socks? In college, I was dating a girl. I really loved her, but I realized that we were incompatible, and we had to break up. So I downed a handle of alcohol by myself in my dorm. I was wasted as heck, but still feeling crappy. So I decided to head to the bars and drink some more. I actually don't remember if I made it there or not, but I remember getting off the bus from having come from the bars and was too wasted to continue the relatively short walk to my dorm. I decided to just lay down where I was at, which was quite literally the gutter next to the railing. Luckily, it was an empty gutter, but a gutter nonetheless. This complete bro dude comes by and sees me laying in the gutter and helps me up. He helps me walk back to my dorm, and in the struggle there, he asked me what's wrong. I explained the situation. I don't remember much of anything from the conversation, but I do remember him saying something to the effect of, "Bro, your problems aren't gonna be solved at the bottom of a bottle." I was homeless and asked the lady for the time. She told me and asked if I wanted to share her sandwich in the paper. She was the first person to treat me like a person, like I was worth something in years. I never got her name, but I will remember her fondly for the rest of my life. I know that she'll never, ever know what a difference she made in my life. Just that one simple thing she did, and the humanity she showed me changed my life. I got sober just a few days later, and completely turned my life around. One person, one smile, one kindness that you may never think of again in your life can change someone else's life beyond measure. I was in my freshman year of college, and while alone in my dorm room, a light fixture fell on my head, giving me a concussion and a major gash. After being taken to the hospital and getting 10 staples in the scalp, and simultaneously being diagnosed with a raging UTI, I was dumped in the parking lot with glass in my hair and blood covering my face, and 15 miles away from the campus at 2 a.m. This was before Uber, and I didn't know who I could call to help me. A female cop drove by and offered to take me back to campus. Along the way, she stopped at a CVS and paid for my prescriptions out of her own pocket. Once back at campus, she made sure I got back to my room and let my RA know what had happened and to keep an eye on me. I truly don't know what I would have done without her. I was freshly 17, new to the area. It was very rural. I didn't have my wallet, and I was bleeding and concussed. I will forever be grateful for her help. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this was in the US. I was by myself in a restaurant bathroom with my screaming newborn baby. As his cries intensified, I started to crumble knowing that we somehow had to walk all the way through the massive restaurant. As the bathroom was tucked away in the back, a woman close to my age walked in. I apologized for crying, and she immediately smiled and responded with, "Don't even worry about it." On her way out, she walked up to me and my baby and asked if this was my first. I responded with a yes. She was not a mom herself, but immediately became empathetic to my situation. After a few minutes of conversation, I told her that I was nervous about walking my crying baby through the busy restaurant. She looked at me and said, "Let's get you out of here." She then opened the door and walked behind me, softly rooting me on all the way back to my table. She had no idea how much I needed her at that moment, and I'm forever grateful. One day I was trying to park at the store, and a lady was crossing in front of me in the lot. I was waiting patiently, and she shot me a dirty look and yelled something like, "What's your problem, asshole?" I proceeded to return the profanities with some FUs and other goodies. I went into the store steaming and proceeded to do my shopping. When I came out, I had all but forgotten about the lady, but as I drove away, there she was. Something came over me, and I pulled up to her and said something like, "I'm sorry for yelling and cursing at you. I don't even know you. Who knows, we could have a lot in common, or even be friends." Her face transformed in front of me. It went from twisted up and angry to soft and friendly. She apologized immediately, and in the most genuine way, told me to have a good day. This is the day I really learned positivity and love is really powerful, and the type of energy I want in my life. I know I sound like a little softy, but that was a big experience for me, and I'm grateful for her. I went on a spontaneous, long ride with my bicycle along a couple of beaches in NSW, Australia one day, and had forgotten my wallet or the fruits I'd usually take with me. Couple of hours later, I sat on one of the two benches, watching the waves crashing along the shore of the empty beach, whilst listening to the rumble inside my stomach, announcing it requires feeding. A man twice my age, I was 25, sat down on the bench next to mine, and we shared a smile and a nod. He got comfy, and my attention wandered back to the blue horizon over the sea, when I suddenly heard, "Hey, you hungry?" I looked over, and he held out his bag filled with plums. I moved to his bench with the biggest smile on my face, where we shared his plums and our names. He introduced himself as Captain Cook, a name his mates had given him. He told me how he's been homeless for many years after losing his job and his wife, how his daughters are embarrassed about his situation, and how he's never met his grandkids before. When he talked about his daughters, he had such a shine of pride in his gaze, despite the sadness that followed along. I hugged him then, and that tipped him over the edge. He cried and cried, not moving his head out of the crook of my neck. I've never heard a grown man's heart break like that before. He wailed so loud, not even the seagulls were a match for him. Within the blink of an eye, Captain Cook peeled himself out of my arms, put his sunnies back on, grabbed his bags, and turned to leave. All he said was, "Thank you." What really got me, like really got me, was that he couldn't bear showing me his tears. He was embarrassed for his sadness, embarrassed for his vulnerability. He waddled as fast as his legs would allow with all the bags and backpacks swinging on his shoulders. I never saw Captain Cook again. All that was left of him was the bag of plums, still sitting where he had sat before. He'd left them for me. I'm pretty sure you are the stranger that the man will never forget too. A prisoner on a Greyhound bus. There were 2 of them, but I remember one specifically. Apparently, they send prisoners who are transferring from max to minimum security on Greyhound buses. They didn't have a guard or anything, and from what she said, they had no motivation at all to run. She had already served 5 years and only had 6 months left. If she tried to run, she would serve at least 10 more years. I was 17 and pregnant and completely broke. I was starving and scared. My life was in shambles, and everyone in my family had abandoned me. She bought me food and was kind to me. She was old enough to be my mother, and I really wish she was. She didn't judge me, and she just bought me food and drinks and offered kind words. I really wish I could find her and repay her kindness. I was walking back from a party in college with my roommate. We each had a girl with us, and this wasted rhinoceros of a man was walking down the street in our direction. I crap you not, he was one of the largest and most built people I have ever seen. He was so wasted he was stumbling from the sidewalk into the street and crap. I obviously just wanted to get home and carry on, but as soon as we were within earshot, he said something along the lines of, "Look at these skinny dweebs, walking home with girls. If this was back in the old times, I would just frick you both up and take them with me. How you like that, ladies?" All 4 of us were terrified, but my wasted brain just told me to make him a buddy and bring him along, for our safety and his. I told him we were going to another party, and he should totally come with us. After a while of chit-chatting and walking with us all to a party that didn't exist, while I had no clue where we were headed or what the plan was, he just said that he was tired and was going to go get a burrito, gave us his phone number, and told us to hit him up if we found the party. I went on an absolutely wild ride for my 21st birthday. I was totally blasted by the end of the night, with barely an understanding of what my name was, much less how old I was. Anyways, on our way home, me and my big group of friends wanted a limo for the night. No wasted driving here. I had to take a piss, but it was late and nowhere was open. So the driver stopped in a mall parking lot, and I just relieved myself by a light post. It wasn't until the next morning that I realized I couldn't find my phone. I had no idea what happened to it, but my girlfriend got a call later that day from my phone number. Turns out one of the street cleaner maintenance guys for the mall had found my phone, and it was his daughter calling to say that they had found it, as her father didn't speak English. I explained the situation and offered to come pick it up, but she said it was fine and they would mail it. A few days later, I received my phone in the mail with a happy birthday card. They could have just kept the phone and sold it, or he could have just turned it in somewhere like a homeless shelter or the mall's lost and found at the security office, but he didn't. He and his daughter took the time out of their day to go to the store, get a birthday card, pack it in my phone in an envelope, run it out to the post office, and mail it to me. It's an act of kindness I'll never forget, especially considering I had just mad all over the street he had to clean. I wonder how he knew it was your birthday. I was the closing cashier at a grocery store when a very tired-looking lady came through. I'll never forget what she got, because she got a steak and some seafood and a frozen bag of Arby's fries. I was just trying to make light conversation and said something along the lines of, "Looks like a good time," and she just, in a hollow voice, told me that it was the first thing she was going to eat in days because her son had just passed away, and this is a meal he would have liked. I talked to the lady and found out more about her son. He was around my age and had died of cancer. She went on her way, but would come back to my register when I was working. When I left, I told her it was my last day, and she asked me for a hug. Never saw her again, but I think of her when I see Arby's fries, and I hope that she is doing okay. Once, a stranger who was in front of me in a line at a very busy coffee shop paid for my coffee after striking up a brief conversation with me, and then he told me to pay it forward. The catch is that I can never strike a conversation with a stranger in a coffee shop. It's too awkward for me, and I am positive that no one would accept a free coffee from me without assuming I'm running a scam or something. I look a bit scary, so now I can never have a coffee without feeling some guilt for not having paid this forward, and I can never pay it. I've done plenty of good deeds like helping lots of strangers with mechanical issues, which is easy for me, but I never get the feeling that I have paid that specific debt related to that coffee, so I can never forget about that stranger. Drive-through. Go through a drive-through, and when you get to the pay window, pay for the next car too. My siblings and my older cousins went to an aqua park during my family's trip to Zakopane. I went on an awesome slide where there is a trap door as a floor, and it drops you straight into a slide. I saw two girls, with one hesitating to take a slide on it. I started talking to one, and tried to convince her to go for no reason at all, and it was already an achievement for an introvert like me. We chatted for a while, swam around for like half an hour, until my older brother told me we needed to go. Sad that I can't contact her at all now. It happened 4 years ago, and I still think about her sometimes. The dude who sold me a suit for my mother's funeral, I really wish I had gotten his name, or even remembered what store it was because he was awesome. I was kind of in a daze, just going through the motions. Mom had passed a couple days before, and needed a new suit. He was initially a pretty typical salesman, and of course asked what the occasion was. I reply, my mom's funeral. He's taken back for a split second, but immediately turns off the salesman, and turns out to be the kindest, most empathetic transaction of my life. I think of that guy often. My mom, dad, and I were driving through the Arches National Park, and we're at the visitor center waiting for my dad to come out on a really hot day. This guy kind of walked towards the back of our van, kind of shifty like he wanted to ask us something, but was too afraid to. After about 3 times of him walking up, but then turning around, he finally came up to the window, and with a thick Russian accent, wondered if we can give him a lift to the top of the park per se. He explained that he and 2 other guys with him were Russian students that were traveling around the US over the summer, and got permission to camp, but didn't have a car since they were taking buses everywhere. My mom told him to wait for my dad to ask him, since he was the driver, and might not be too happy to see we picked up some extra bodies. Dad was cool with it, and we got them and their packs in our van, which was packed already since we were going a West Coast road trip after I graduated high school. One of the guys sat on the floor and was happy they didn't have to walk several miles in the heat and elevation changes. So as we were driving through the park, these guys are just as chatty as can be, and I've never really interacted with anyone from another country on such an intimate level, so I had a zillion questions. It turns out all of these guys are PhDs that were taking a trip together. Super friendly guys, and extremely grateful for the lift. They tried paying my dad, who refused, which in turn turned into a typical Minnesota nice exchange of one party insisting on paying and the other flat out refusing to take the payment. One of the guys said they would just share a 20-ounce bottle of pop, and we of course weren't going to let that happen, and made them take 2 cold drinks apiece. We got to the top, dropped them off, said our goodbyes, and continued onward. I'll never forget those guys, and I bet they have never forgotten you and your family. In 1998, I was in Japan working with CBS on the Winter Olympics. After the Olympics, I stayed in Japan to travel. I was in Kyoto doing all the normal sights, and an older Japanese man who spoke English engaged me in conversation. He then showed me through Kyoto, places you would never find in a guidebook. He also persuaded me to attend the fire demonstration that evening, which was an unbelievable experience in Japanese culture. It was an amazing day in a truly rich historical culture. I think he just wanted to practice his English skills with someone who spoke the language. Many Japanese natives like to do this. I went down to a veterinarian pharmacy I had never gone to about a year ago in the summer. I had a lot of time to wait for the prescription to be filled. First-time customer, so I couldn't call ahead. And so I went to the nearby shopping village. They had a public piano there. I've played piano since childhood, and recently tried to sing and play at the same time. Knowing that nobody knew me around, I started to play and sing American Pie, 'cause who cares? A woman was just walking by, and stopped and started singing Harmony. Also started up Piano Man, and she sang along with that as well. We sang and played together for a good 15 minutes before I had to return. But that was just a spontaneously magical encounter. I learned she used to sing at clubs, and I told her I used to play in jazz bands. We had a good time together, and I doubt we'll see each other again. But I'll never forget her. I live in Minnesota, and we have frequent bad winters. My old car, 2003 Cavalier, skidded on ice into the ditch one day on the highway about 4 miles out of town. Called my husband in tears that I couldn't get out. He hung up to come get me, but a four-wheeler and an older man pulled up beside me. He brought a chain and tied it to the front of my car. We tried for 2 minutes to get me out, but the four-wheeler wasn't enough to get my car out. After that 2-minute struggle, a dry clean service van appeared, and 2 very large men in Hawaiian t-shirts stepped out, asking if we needed help. They got behind my car in below freezing weather, and with the help of the four-wheeler, got my car back into the highway. By the time my husband got there, I was already back home. He laughed after I told him what happened. It was amazing. Was a cab driver in a podunk town in central Washington state. Had a VIP fare to essentially cater to for the day, coming in from Seattle. Guy was apparently in charge of millions of dollars and was looking to buy a Titanic vineyard that I delivered him to. This guy was your prototypical handsome business entrepreneur in his early mid-30s. Nice, well-spoken, generous as hell. Conversed with me the entire trip and tipped me like I had saved his life. With him, on the other hand, was a rotund, balding, grimy, asshole toady of an assistant. Guy was a piece of crap asshole and said the most prominent thing that probably saved my hide and put me on a better path in life. You're a loser, cab guy. You live in this crapo town, working your crapo job, and you'll never amount to anything if you stay here. Get out of this stagnant crap place and go make something out of yourself. Initially, I was taken aback and quite mad at the prick, but after some post-job introspection, I realized he was right. I moved 2 months later and started college. I've been in my career for years now. Wow, success through spite. Brought my 12-year-old son to a Rush concert a few years back. We were on the floor around 20 rows back, so he was struggling to see anything. At intermission, we walked up to the stage to have a closer look at Neil Peart's drum kit. A lady approached us and asked how we were enjoying the show. I told her we were having a blast, but, motioning to my son, indicated how he was struggling to see. At that, she offered up a front row ticket as she had an extra through a friend that didn't show up. My son's eyes lit up. He was front row center watching his drumming idol. I'll never forget that stranger, as she made a dream come true for my son. Fortunately, I had 2 friends who also had front row seats so they can keep an eye on him. Perfect show, perfect night.